Greece. It was here, close on 2,500 years ago, that a tale was composed about an island civilization of unparalleled wealth and power, which was swallowed up by the sea. The author was no less than Plato, the father of Western philosophy. And his story became the legend of Atlantis. The idea of Atlantis has always fascinated me. Now, you might think that as a historian I'd pour scorn on the legend, just condemn it as another fairy tale. Atlantis has generated feverish speculation as to whether this fabled island ever existed. And it's spawned scores of crackpot theories about where it might be found. But I'm certain that beneath the rubble of fantasy are the foundations of a real story. 1,000 years before Plato lived, a truly amazing civilization thrived here in the Eastern Mediterranean. But that civilization suffered a terrible catastrophe. Brand new scientific evidence shows us that disaster was at least twice as large as previously thought. So could that tragedy be the basis for Plato's Atlantis myth? When you say the name Atlantis, what often springs to mind is a lost underwater city or a mythical utopia. But actually, Plato's Atlantis is neither of those things. His was a maritime trading empire, a sort of super state that enjoyed huge success, but then became aggressive and overbearing, and so was punished for its arrogance by the gods. Now, because that idea is eternally fascinating to us, the notion that pride always comes before a fall, from the moment that the Atlantis myth was set down here in Athens, it has never once left the human radar. Listen then to a tale which is, though strange, but wholly true. For these histories tell of a mighty power, Atlantis. It had circular belts of sea and land enclosing one another alternately. In the sacred precincts of Poseidon, there were bulls roaming at large. The seaway and harbour were filled with ships and merchants coming from all quarters. They were, of all men, most renowned, and the wealth they possessed was so immense that the like had never been seen before. But at length, they lost their comeliness, and there occurred portentous earthquakes and floods, and one grievous day and night befell them. And the island of Atlantis was swallowed up by the sea and vanished. Atlantis is an allegory, a morality tale. Plato wrote it as a warning to his fellow Athenians that wealth and power lead to destruction if they are not grounded in virtue. But Plato's description of Atlantis is so rich in specific detail that I think he picked up on stories he'd heard and transmitted a fantastical version of something that once existed.
But he is in the streets, he's chatting away, he's picking up ideas,
Angie Hobbs is an expert on Plato. In return for a historical tour of his world, I want to find out what she thinks about the roots of the story. I've got a little treat for you.
What are we about to see?
We are about to see. I've been given special access to these new city centre excavations, a time capsule from Golden Age Athens.
We're walking where Plato, Aristotle, all my heroes would have walked and chatted and argued and debated, and this is where it all began. It's actually quite moving.
It is. A bit of Golden Age stone there. I mean, that's what I love about Plato, the idea that he's out here, he's in the city, he's using all the tricks he can, in a way, to try to encourage people to listen to his philosophy and to be moved by it and to learn from it.
Yes, and of course we've got an age without media to promote your message for you. You have to do everything yourself. But he never loses sight of his Socratic inheritance of wanting to get out there and really make individuals, people's lives better, to save their lives, save their souls, as he puts it.
It could be then that this is just a moral fable, that the Atlantis story is just one grand political allegory.
Well, it's a possibility. He's certainly got the vivid imagination to be able to have made it up. He's not a historian, that's not his intention. His intention is to use history, to use mythology, to make his own philosophical points.
How possible do you think it is that the Atlantis myth has some kind of a root in the prehistoric past?
I think it's very likely that Plato has heard some stories of past civilizations which have come crashing down, that he's got half-remembered bits of oral history which he weaves in. He's concocting this fantastical brew here, but he's using bits of mythology, bits of history, anything he wants as part of the mix. So I think there could be some factual historical basis for Plato's legend, even though that's not what Plato himself is particularly interested in.
Whatever Plato's inspiration, Atlantis has captured our imagination ever since. It's led to scores of expeditions and thousands of books. More often than not, these quests tell us more about the power of human imagination than about Atlantis itself. Some of the most bizarre Atlantis theories are based on the idea that human civilization has extraterrestrial origins.
I try to prove that this planet has been visited by beings from outer space several times in antiquity. They made with our forefathers a kind of artificial mutation. And finally, these visits from outer space have gone into archaeological artifacts.
However incredible Eric von Daniken's theory, he sold millions of books and persuaded many that Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony. But Atlantis has also been used for more sinister purposes. Nazi leader Heinrich Himmler was convinced that the so-called Aryan master race was descended from the fabled Atlanteans, and that the missing link could be found in one of the most unlikely places. Tibet. During the Victorian age of exploration, the obsession with Atlantis even extended to British prime ministers. William Gladstone wrote a letter to an American congressman called Ignatius Donnelly, who'd written a book about the lost world, locating it somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. Gladstone proposed a government-sponsored expedition to search for it there, but the Treasury rejected the proposal. Atlantis hunting is a fraught exercise, but precisely because it has generated so many wild theories, there's even more reason to try to sift the fact from the fiction. Fresh scientific evidence buttresses the idea that Plato's story was inspired by a real island and a real ancient civilization which was destroyed by a real natural disaster. The island I'm heading for is southeast of Athens. It's called Santorini, or Thera, as it was originally christened by the Greeks.
The first thing that strikes you about Thera is its really odd topography. The land just juts straight out of the sea, and then you get these small islands ringed by water, which are then in turn cradled by that massive semicircle of land up there. Now just listen to what Plato has to say about his Atlantis.
There were circular belts of sea and land enclosing one another, some greater, some smaller.
That
Now, of course, that in itself doesn't prove anything. I mean, there could be loads of locations all around the world that match this description.